Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription. I'm your host, Matthew Holman. This is the podcast where we help you figure out everything related to D2C subscriptions. I'm excited today to be joined by Arthur Falcone. Arthur, thanks for coming on the pod.
Good to be here. Thanks, Matt.
Absolutely. So we met through the Ecom Saloon, or I should say the Ecom Cowboy Saloon, which is a great show that we have both been on. I highly recommend everybody going and checking out. But Arthur, you are the founder and creator of Tandem Growth, a D2C agency focused on helping brands grow, as well as Arlo, which we're going to be talking a lot as like a marketing analytics tool. I'd love to hear just a little bit from you about your journey in the D2C space, how Tandem came about, and obviously I know that dovetails well into what Arlo is and where you're going with now.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. I started my e-commerce kind of journey probably about 27 or so years ago. I've been on the brand side, I've been on the agency side, and long story short, I started my own ad agency predominantly around meta ads and some growth. In 2018, we sold that in 22. Ever since then, kind of been growth consulting and generally under the Tandem Growth name. We work with a handful of brands at a time, execute on the meta ad side, because I know that really well, and then step in across the rest of their e-commerce stack. These brands really kind of trust us to help them grow. Generally, our ICPs between like 1 and about 10 million ARR. These are kind of like hyper growth, kind of like smaller brands. And we have some good stories there. On the Arlo side, so Arlo, essentially I built Arlo to replace myself, right? More or less. I started actually working on something like Arlo probably about 6 or 7 years ago, as like if-then statements in Google Sheets. That was really hard. And like it was, pre-AI, everything was grueling, everything was manual, and literally pulling, and managing if-then statements into Google Sheet. And I actually had something like this, like built for myself and my team back then, and like an internal dashboard. So
is that like the decision tree of like, if we're seeing this, then we want to do this, or if we're not seeing this, then we want to pivot to that kind of thing? Or
yeah, so think of it as kind of like a intelligent like alerts and like recommendations engine.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So it spots anomalies and brings those forward, and in some cases can recommend action.
Yeah, that reminds me of like I've done a few things like over in the past where like it triggers like a color bar in like Excel, right? Like if it's above this band, it's green. If it's in the middle, it's yellow. If it's below, it's red. And then that can trigger you to like, what you need to pay attention to or something like that.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. So like, especially if you're an agency and you're managing, 15, 20 brands or so, having something like that with like conditional formatting on what's in trouble is a great first step.
Yeah, keep a pulse on everything. So one thing you mentioned in the pre-interview, and coming back to Arlo, is like, I'd love for you to kind of share that whole idea of bias, because I felt like that really, really resonated with me. You're talking about you build Arlo to replace yourself. Well, tell us a little about why you think it's necessary, and everything you said has nothing to do with AI automation or anything like that. It's actually, I think, really, really like from a deep psychology standpoint, like important.
Yeah, sure. So great founders, great e-commerce founders that have really great product market fit, which for the most part are, the kinds of founders that I've worked with, don't really come to the table with a ton of marketing knowledge. These guys are not calculating CAC the right way. They're not really familiar with what MER is, et cetera, et cetera. And so they bring on consultants, they bring on fractional CMOs, in some cases hire full-time, they bring on agencies to help them kind of navigate all that. The problem with even the best consultants or what have you is their work and their recommendations are entirely based on previous bias, on what they've succeeded with in the past, what they failed with, what they're really good at. So like even in my case, you bring me on as a fractional CMO or whatever, I'm entirely biased based on my prior successes and failures, right? I know meta ads really well. And so for me, that's like my hammer and nail. And most, fractional CMOs, if they've been deep in the trenches, they have like one or two of those things that they're really good at. And so Arlo essentially has been built to become kind of this like intelligence and analysis layer that sits on top of whatever platforms they're using, right? So they're using Shopify with Klaviyo, with Attentive, with on top of Meta ads and Recharge, et cetera, et cetera. And so like Arlo ingests all of this data and tells the founder in very, very plain terms, like based on everything that's going on in your business, based on historical data, based on what's currently happening over the past 7 days, over the past 30 days, these are the things that you're best focusing on for the next week or so.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that, because as soon as you said that, I thought to myself, like, yeah, that's what we do. Like we have playbooks, we run them because they work most of the time. And I would like to think that we're not so blind that we're going to try to fit a square peg into a round hole when it's not appropriate. But at the same time, like, bias is real. And that's like a starting point. And it's like, it's one of those things, like it can help you be successful having a bias, but it can also hold you back in other situations. And so how is Arlo like able to do some of those things? Like, is it just paying attention? Is it like just a more sophisticated version of those if then sheets, or like what is it doing for you that you feel like is a little bit different, or again, the tool that is meant to replace you?
I think that especially if you're really, really good at what you do and you've done it so many times and you've kind of like figured out whether you've defined it on paper or not, whether you like created that checklist or not, you're still in your mind when the new brand comes on, you're more or less kind of like following the same steps, which in most cases is great. That's probably worked for you 75% of the time, but Arlo doesn't have a checklist, right? It doesn't have to follow the same steps. And so like Arlo can go down different paths each and every time. Right. And so it can surface things that you have forgotten to surface, or you just didn't look there because you don't expect gold to be in that, like, in that cave or whatever. Arlo finds everything.
So there's like a flow maybe that this brand is just crushing at that you normally wouldn't pay that much attention to. There's an ad angle or a selling approach or something that might be even more basic than you would try, but Arlo's like, hey, like, this looks like this could work really well. Am I oversimplifying it?
No, but Arlo in itself, like Arlo can be complicated to explain, but incredibly easy to look at and demo. Right. Okay. Because at the end of the day, all the whole output of Arlo is there's a list of action items. Right. And a founder either agrees with them or not. That's entirely up to them. But objectively, these are the action items that will get you to the next, to the next level.
We were talking about a brand on Recharge that you guys work with. Have you been using Arlo with that brand, or is that Tandem that you've been working with them, or is it a version of both?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We actually, so it's funny, after we finished our like joint engagement with this brand in combination with the team at Recharge, we built our Arlo Recharge integration based off of what we saw we did with this brand, based on the actions that we took, based on the results that we saw from those actions, and the final result of having taken all these actions. And the main thing that we came up with, and I'll get into some of these results and some of these actions that we took to take this brand and really increase the revenue contribution from subscriptions. But some of the things that that we saw are that across a bunch of different brands that I've also worked with, is that people will implement something like Recharge and they'll activate subscriptions and then done, right? And like yeah, I mean, like you know this. Same thing with Meta ads. Same thing with so many different things. On average, a brand might be using 20 different apps, and each one of those apps is utilized at like 5 to 10%.
Arthur, my biggest pet peeve might be going one step further, is when I audit a brand that's doing 50 million a year in revenue on Shopify, and 60% of that revenue comes from subscriptions. Okay, so they're doing, what is that? 30 million a year on subscription revenue, and their head count for managing subscriptions is one person, and an email agency. and then they've got 10 working on the growth side. So that's where I just like I'm boggled by it, or
100%.
bewildered by. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, keep going.
And I mean, the challenge, and the challenge with founders isn't that they don't have the time to do these things, because if they knew that the net result of spending 8 hours in really optimizing recharge means an increase in subscription revenue by of 40, 50, 60%, they'd spend that time. They just don't know which direction to go in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
There's nothing, even Recharge's own tools, there's nothing that makes it super clear of like, here are the gaps. Just do these things.
Yeah. Similarly, how when you're talking about Arlo, it's like Recharge is essentially like a blank canvas. They have tools, they have use cases, they have best practices, they have data. So they know how people are using the platform. The problem is there's never really a cohesive story for an individual brand. They're not subscription growth experts, right? They're recharge experts and they're subscription pros. And that's the same thing we see in the space, is that it's not like you can't go to your software platform and say, hey, how do I grow my business? They're going to say, well, here's the tools we know other merchants are using. Here's some offers or some email tactics that other brands are using, but they don't know what's going to work for you because they can't localize it to the brand, which is like how you mentioned, how you talked about Arlo. So when you come to a brand like that and you're looking at that, what are you looking at with the playbook and your own bias, again, of what you said in the past, like, or talking about this wellness brand, like what's the first step for you in evaluating that? Or do you just want to launch in talking to about how you guys have been able to increase subscription revenue for this wellness brand?
Oh, so this wellness brand in particular, and this is like a women's wellness brand, we knew, all we knew, I should say, out of the gate is that we should be seeing more revenue out of subscriptions. We approached this not from the perspective of like, well, maybe we should try this, and this, because we just didn't know enough about what was possible. Right. And I know, having done this, for ages, I know a lot more of what's possible from subscription programs than like a typical founder does. And I still don't know every feature set that we should be taking advantage of for Recharge. And on top of that, Recharge may have 75 different features. 60 of them may, only 60 of them may be useful for this brand.
Right.
And so we approach it from the perspective of like, we need more. Right. And so instead of digging in and kind of exploring Recharge and going down all kinds of rabbit holes, we reached out to Recharge for help. And, we had a fantastic experience with them. We had a great rep take us through everything. They knew essentially, they were getting a case study out of this, and we were happy to oblige. And, we made a ton of changes with it, over the span of about 3 months with them. And, we increased our subscription revenue contribution from 10% to, at this point, north of 40%.
It's fantastic. That's fantastic.
It's a great result.
Much more predictable revenue, profitability. What are some of the tactics? What are some of the things that you guys found that was working for them?
Yeah. So one of our first steps was, so there's a number of products that this brand carries. Some of these products are super subscription heavy, right? These are things that like you absolutely, you take one thing a day, and then you need to refresh this product every 30 days, basically on the dot. Super subscription friendly. There are other products that are more kind of topical that you only really use when you have an issue. And so those kinds of products can range, and you may need one a month, you may need one every 6 months.
Right.
And so one of the biggest reasons that people would unsubscribe on this one product would be that they just have too much. And so enabling them to select like, just suppress the next 2 months for me, I'm cool. Right. And so like we ended up reducing churn substantially for that one product, and the net result is that, the churn was a lot less, but we did end up extending, we went from an average of something like, the customer for this product receives one every 1.5 months to like 3 months or so. And that's totally fine, because we'd much rather them be happy with their subscription than just stock this product until they end up churning
LTV out, as opposed to like short-term gains, and then you go through everybody. Right. Yeah.
And then on the SKUs, exactly. And then on the SKUs that are super subscription heavy, again, you need this every 30 days. You need it refreshed every 30 days. We push the subscription program forward, right? We reduced actually the visibility of like a one-time buy option, because there's really no reason to buy this product one time. Like you're not trialing this product for 30 days. You're subscribing, and if it doesn't work out for you, then you churn, and that's okay. We have, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So we built that kind of functionality. We better understood the differences between all of our SKUs and how often they should be delivered to customers. We built, and this next thing worked super, super well for us. We built a milestone rewards ladder. So for every 2 orders, there's a reward, some kind of a reward that they're receiving. And rewards could be, 50% off the next order that they get, or that current order. It could be a full size product that they get, which is fantastic for upsell, because they may end up adding that product to their next subscription orders. We gave them free merch, right? So swag, which as far as I'm concerned, is just free marketing, right? A hat with the brand's name on is fantastic for us. Costs us very little. And then crucially, to help extend the lifetime value of our subscribers, well past the 12-month period, we created this almost like God mode tier at the end, where after order 8, we're just giving you 15% off every subscription order, which makes them feel like they've like reached it, right?
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I think we did this study a few years ago about people being able to make changes, people being able to have like essentially more control over their subscription, and they're often 2 times more valuable than other subscribers, because even though they might not be purchasing quite as often, they stick around because it works for them. And I also see, like, I don't know what the term would be, like maybe we need to try to define it, but it's like there are supplements, say like hydration stuff, electrolytes, for example, where you can take it off and on here or there. Like it's not really like a big deal. Protein powder is one of those, but there are others, like say testosterone replacement or a hormonal supplement or something like that. It's like there's no point to not subscribe. You can't take it for a week. There's no real trial here, people. Like you need to be on it for 30, 60, 90 days to really feel the impact. And it's always hard because the brand's like, well, if I don't give people the option to pick one time, I'm going to just lose sales and my conversion rates are going to be horrible. But at the same time, it's like, why would you want to give people an option to it's like if you want to get married, you don't go do a bunch of one night stands and expect all those to convert to like marriage, right? Like you're looking to get married, so make that offer, right? Sorry if I pulled on religious stuff for everybody. That's how I think about dating. It's fun dating culture story. But anyway, so like how do you think about that when it's like, okay, you said we just push that forward. I really, really like that kind of visual of thinking about it's not necessarily being aggressive so much as we're making sure this is what people are seeing, and because otherwise there's really no point to just buy from us.
So there's a couple of things there. And one big caveat here is that I don't know that this is something that I'd recommend you do until you've built trust with your audience, right? If you're launching a brand and straight out of the gate, you're just kind of like, listen, you should only really subscribe to this thing. That's a big jump for a lot of people, especially if it's a category that people aren't really familiar with. They don't know what it's going to do to their bodies, and they don't know what their experience is going to be like. I think that's a tough sell. So I think build the trust first. Luckily, this brand has been building trust for years and years and years, and so it made sense for them. And then just as importantly, in terms of like ongoing communication with these subscribers, especially on products that take weeks to see a result, is incredibly important. I mean, that goes all the way back to how did you bring them to the site and purchase in the first place, right? That goes all the way back to your, to the ads that you're running in push marketing. It goes all the way back to messaging, right? You have to manage their expectations. And then once they subscribe, what we did was create an ongoing kind of like communication cadence through SMS and through email to just manage, like for those particular products, to manage their expectations. This is what you should be feeling in week 1. This is what you should be feeling in week 2 and week 3 and so on. And the cancellation flow reflects that as well. If they're canceling, especially after like their first like 30-day period is up, we communicate to them very clearly that like, hey, you're on week 2, give this a shot for another week, another 2 weeks or so. These are the results that you should be feeling.
Right. Yeah, no, that's smart. I mean, we've worked with a number of wellness brands in the space. That's the playbook we run. Like and sometimes it's hard because a lot of founders or sometimes will blame like founder WhatsApp groups where they'll say like, don't communicate with subscribers, don't send billing reminders. But we've seen and there's certainly verticals and products where that can be effective. But when you're talking about trying to convince somebody to take a product for 45 days to feel the benefits, and yes, you're trying to sell them on the fact that it's going to change their life, you can't leave them alone for 45 days. Like, you kind of have to hold their hand during that process, right? Otherwise, there's all this doubt, and it's not cheap. Whatever you're selling is not cheap, and there's all these questions. So if you don't speak up, you don't try to meet people where they're at, like you'll lose them. But
You're building a better customer too, right? Like and you're right. Like I totally agree that this isn't the path in every category,
right.
But in like a health and wellness category, if you've got a really great like product market fit, the more educated your customer, the longer they'll stick around. Have them, allow them to feel like they own that relationship.
Yep. Yeah, the more they can talk about you with other people, and then I mentioned you talked about it. I mean, you hit the nail on the head as you said. You're creating your best customer, and this brand's gotten right at that 8-month period where it's like, yes, you have essentially graduated into our elite status. Here's what you get for being that. We love you, you love us. It's great. Let's keep going. So I really do like that. I think that's where I see a lot of a missed opportunity with brands is so many people are really, really concerned with the people that are leaving that they forget that the people that are staying, like you can get more of people like that, or you can do a better job of empowering those people into becoming like lifetime customers in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a previous episode, like what you said really resonated with me. Instead of worrying about why people leave, worry about why they don't stay. That's a
Right.
big deal. Like I think that's super important. It's a good mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a female supplement brand here in Utah. One of our first like consulting gigs years ago was we did that. I had like the entire company around the table, like everybody's explaining all this stuff. And it was kind of like one of those funny things where everybody kept saying the same thing. And I said, well, it sounds like your customers don't know how long it takes for the product to be effective. And they're like, they don't. And I said, well, let's do that.
Right.
And like they went from like double digit churn to single digit churn just by updating
Sure.
like some of their messaging and stuff around how long it takes their product to work. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, and it's a world, it's a world I like to live in where education and empowerment's like part of the thing. Like there's certainly other products I take where you don't think about it anymore. You just know that it's doing its job, but not everybody's like that.
So, so from a technical perspective, you more even a founder can tell you that, hey, we should be seeing we should be seeing more revenue from our subscription program. We have these great products. People seem to be bouncing out. I don't really know why, but they know that like it's probably because people don't really know how long it takes to take effect, right? Or they know that they have a goal of like, we either need to reduce number of people that are leaving the subscription program, or we just don't have enough subscribers in general. I think what's missing is the how, right? And I'll segue this into Arlo also, that when as Arlo injects recharges API, combines them with like with the merchant's Shopify data and their acquisition data and everything else, Arlo also injects through that recharge API everything that's possible within recharge, right? And if you think about it, if you think about all of that going into like Arlo's intelligence and analysis layer, that's the piece that I feel like is kind of missing. Like merchants don't know what to do in recharge.
So you're actually making like recharge recommendations, not just like analytics. So a great case in point is the subscription upsell in cart, which is, something that Recharge does really well. Essentially, you toggle it on, and if the product has a subscription plan available for it, and they add the product to cart, Recharge just shows the upgrade to subscription. So what you're saying is if Arlo sees that that's not happening and that you have a low subscription take rate or a low like add to cart rate of subscriptions, it's going to say, hey, here's this feature you're not using, and it will give you a 10%, like it gives you a 10 to 15% lift on subscription ads. Just that's what the product does.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. And Arlo will actually estimate the revenue lift from implementing that change.
Okay.
Because it'll read from Recharge's knowledge base as well. And if Recharge in their knowledge base, or even if Arlo has enough historical data on like what does this change do, Arlo will be able to estimate what that revenue lift is. And so you can then figure out like, hey, is it worth going down the path and implementing this feature?
That's really smart. I really like that. And that, again, that is a gap we see in the subscription platform space where, again, like, a great CSM is going to use their Recharge playbook, or if you're on SKUs, Stay Loop, like all those, like, you're going to use your playbook, but oftentimes sitting on the brand side of the table, the subscription platform will say, hey, you should be doing XYZ. And I'm like, man, like we got to get ABC done right. Like I hear you. That could be effective, but it's not the place we want to start because of these reasons. And it usually has to do with where the brand is. And so it's really cool to hear a tool because we have lots of other I call them analytics tools, and the space is transforming very quickly with AI. We've had Ham, Flaunt. I need to have Finzi on here in the near future, but it feels like yours is a little bit different in the sense that you're making not just like, hey, you should increase spend on Meta versus here. It's actually like, hey, here's a feature set or a tool that you're not leveraging in your tech stack that will, and then the impact.
100%. Our goal with Arlo is to keep drilling down as deep and deep and deep as possible, so that Arlo isn't recommending that, like, maybe it's detected that on mobile, a certain page conversion rate is very low or bounce rate is very high. Arlo isn't built to tell you to take a look there and to analyze it. Arlo would have already done the analysis and tell you what's wrong and what to fix, right? As opposed to, again, like go over here and do some more analysis.
Right. Very cool. Well, Arthur, thanks a lot for coming on the show, man. This has been really, really great. I'm really excited. I think we need to talk more about the tool offline because it sounds like really, really helpful. We obviously work with a lot of brands on Recharge and subscriptions, but let's see. So people want to check, obviously they connect with you on LinkedIn, Tandem, but meetarlo.ai if they want to go check out this tool. You guys are just coming out of beta. You guys are now launching and looking for more users on the platform. So tell us a little bit about what the next few months look like for you and the Arlo team.
Yeah, so we've got a bunch of really great partnerships set up. We have a couple of brands that have been in beta testing. We have more brands that have already launched in the platform that are really seeing kind of great results from the action insights. But really, the next plan for us is this kind of like two-way distribution method. We're launching with more partnerships. We'll do some co-marketing with them, and guys like Recharge, Attentive, et cetera. And then always obviously looking to bring new brands into the fold and to have them integrate with Arlo and see what they could see in terms of action items.
Awesome. Well, Arthur, thanks again for coming on the podcast, man.
Pleasure. This is great. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Stay tuned next week for another dose of Subscription Prescription. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.